Let's imagine you're an online entrepreneur, online business owner, and you only get 4 hours every single week in order to grow your business. Only 4 hours to get attention and get leads, to convert those leads, actually fulfill on those customers, make content, do all the things. You only get 4 hours every week to do that. This is reality for a lot of online entrepreneurs. And so I want to take a crack today on what can we do that would provide us the highest ROI for our business with the least amount of time to invest. That's where we're going over today. If you're new to the podcast or the YouTube channel, this is the I can't even talk. This is the Elevate Entrepreneur. I should know my own podcast title. And if you're new to the channel, you like what you see, make sure you hit the like button. It really helps the algorithm out. All right. It helps us be able to share this with more people, help some more people out. If you're listening to this in your car driving and you want to support the channel, make sure you go and what do? I don't know. You go and recommend it. Tell a friend. You could leave a review. These are things that are good for the channel and also the podcast. Appreciate you doing that. Let's get back to what we're talking about. All right. So I mentioned earlier that I think there's a overcorrection and overindulgence, if you will, on time spent on the wrong things as online business owners. Specifically, coaches, consultants, and the service providers, okay? The people that are out there that have agencies. We overcorrect a little bit on certain things. You have some coaches that are making a TikTok a day. They're making 18 TikToks, 18 Reels. Their job is more of a content creator than even a business owner. They spend so much time on drawing attention to themselves, and to their business than they do actually working on the business. Most of the time because obviously they don't have as many clients as somebody else, or maybe they have a team that's fulfilling on those clients and they can spend that time. And that's good and well. But the problem that comes up oftentimes, and I've seen this personally when I first started as a coach, is that you make a whole bunch of content. Let's say it works, right? The short form content that you're making works. You get leads, you convert them, you're in the DMs, you get them on a phone call, you talk to them over the phone, and they say, hey, I want to hire you as a coach. Now, next thing you know, you have clients, which is a good problem to have, but now you don't have time to make content. So then what happens after a few months, some of those clients drop off, right? You don't retain them for whatever reason, the program ends, they don't upsell or expand into the next offering. And so here you are not making as much content, and so you don't have people to fill that up. And then you get stuck. This is a reality. Again, a lot of clients that usually come to me is because the inconsistent sales, the problem that I usually solve for my customers and my clients is the inconsistency of sales. This is what happens, right? When we focus on short form content, driving people that way. Or again, you have somebody that is so focused on, so we have somebody that's so focused on fulfilling on clients that they don't spend the time necessary in order to grow the business. They're not generating leads. They're not talking to them on the phone call, taking sales calls. And then one day those clients fall to the wayside and then you're kind of stuck. Or worse, you're making tons of content and it's not actually converting. And so now not only do you not have clients, you're not making money, you're making tons of content. That's a problem too. Okay. So today, that's the context. And today I want to kind of solve for that problem. I think there's two tools. I'm calling them tools. And one of them is a platform type thing. The other one is social media, a form of social media. And so I call them tools. And the reason why I say that is on purpose. I think we overdo it on the social media thing. We think social media is the end all be all. And it's not. There are more business owners that don't have social media that are 7-figure businesses than they are businesses that use social media and are 7 figures. Like, it's not even close. Regardless, I think it's an important tool. So we're going to use it. We're going to use the tool. We're not going to let it use us. And again, when I'm online a lot, I see people complain about the algorithm. They're frustrated by how much content they make. They spend hours on a reel or a TikTok and it plummets for them. It doesn't do anything for their business and they're frustrated. Like, that's focusing on the wrong thing. I'd be more frustrated about the fact that you don't have clients, but I digress. So what are the two assets that you need to focus on? All right. First, I'm going to go through the reason why I'm picking these two things. There's short form, which is short-term results. Short form, generally speaking, provides short-term results. What I mean is, again, you spend a few hours, whatever, creating a reel. That reel, historically, has lasted for a few days tops. Okay, in the past, it was literally like 30 minutes, and then after 30 minutes, it wasn't doing nothing. I think the algorithms like TikTok and Instagram are getting a little bit better, and recommending when you search on things. So it's getting better, but still, it's pretty, after a few days, it's kind of dead. So you have that. The only way short-term turns into long-term is if you're consistent with it. But again, you have to keep greasing that engine. You got to keep having to put content out in order to stay relevant and do all that. So that's short-term. I don't really love thinking short-term for business. I've done it, by the way, and this is coming from experience. I'm not just shitting on stuff that like I don't have any insight on. I've personally done this, right? I've done the hamster wheel of making content every single day, waiting for customers to come to me. And when I stopped, guess what? The lead stopped. It's not a good place to be in. Is there another alternative? Slight pause to drink some coffee. Okay. Is there another option? Yes. Long form content. Obviously, if you're listening to this on a podcast, you're listening or you're watching this on YouTube, you understand my strategy. And I want to explain the reason for it. I had this guy I was talking to and working with him, and I was going to talk to him about, consulting on his YouTube channel. Specifically, I don't do consulting on YouTube for, hey, how do you make your content even better than it is today? I do it specifically around how do you use YouTube in your funnel and all that. So I'm talking to him about this, and he hadn't posted a YouTube video in like 5 years, maybe even longer. It was a long time, and I asked him why he stopped. He goes, I don't know, I just never really got into it. I'm like, okay, interesting. He goes, but I'll tell you this, Raylen. There is a video I posted 6 years ago that still to this day brings in leads for me. And it has every single month, every year for the last 5-6 years. This is the reason why, at this time, by the way, I'm still doing the everyday content over on Instagram and LinkedIn and all these places. And that was the aha moment that I was like, what am I doing making content any other place other than YouTube and podcasting? Because the longevity of that content. So yeah, the beautiful thing is if you post a short form reel, okay, you're going to get real butthurt. Your feelings going to get real hurt when you post it and it gets 200 views and you're like, man, this is really unfortunate. Why did I spend all this time making it? Versus you make a YouTube video and it quote unquote bombs, okay? It gets 50 views, whatever. But because it's middle of the funnel, people are searching for it and all that, it will continue to grow. I have content on my channel right now that when I launched it, launched to like 20 views. But in the year since, it continually gets people to look at it simply because they're searching for it. So if you make really specific content that solves the problem of your audience, they're going to find it eventually. And if it's good enough, they will go on the link in the bio. They will, if you have a little QR code like I have throughout this video, for example, they'll scan that QR code and sign up for your newsletter. They'll do something to go a little bit farther and deeper to work with you. That's why long form content. It's, yes, of course, like if you get it really dialed in and you're making a video a week and you have the potential like everything else to make get millions of views. But if you really focus on it and think long term and just focus on searchability, again, you're going to have staying power. Staying power that doesn't just give you views, mind you, but actually gets leads into your funnel. Gets leads to want to raise their hand and say, hey, I've listened to X amount of hours of your content. Here's the other thing I love about long form content. There's a interesting stat that YouTube uses and the other social media platforms are using it too. It's called watch time. Watch time. It's the amount of hours someone spends with you. Okay, so I want you to imagine this. So you watch a reel of somebody and maybe you go through a little rabbit hole. Okay, and you watch maybe a couple reels from them, whatever, but then you scan to somebody else and then you don't ever come back to them, whatever. Maybe you have invested 10 minutes with that individual. Then you go to the sales call with them. There's still this moment of like, I don't really know you, so I need to spend time with you on the sales call. I got to understand who you are. YouTube is completely different because it's long form, and the average video that I make anyway is around 10 minutes. You could binge my content, spend hours, literally hours over the course of a few weeks or a few months. And then when you get to the sales call, you feel like you know me because you can't hide in long form content. You can't hide who you really are. And so if you spend enough time listening to me on podcast or a YouTube video, you eventually are going to go, that's Raylen. You can't hide yourself for that long. That's why do you think so many people stand up for people like Joe Rogan? And that's not what he means when he says, because you feel like you know him, because you spend, at this point, months probably with him. If you accumulate all the hours you've listened to that podcast or other podcasts like it, then you feel like you know that person. We can't tell the difference. The human brain can't tell the difference between an actual real relationship, hanging out with someone one-on-one and talking, conversing back and forth, compared to listening to someone talk one way to us for an amount of time. You still feel like you know that person, even though you don't, right? They don't know you. It's a weird relationship. So what's the point of me telling you that? The point is that then leads to a more efficient sales call. They get on the sales call with you. They feel like you already know you. The rapport building is kind of like not really even necessary because they're like, I know you, I like you, I trust you. I just need to know more about the program, and I'm going to give you my money. That's the power of long-form content. And this also includes, obviously, podcasts. Not going to lie, I've slept on podcasts a little bit too much, probably. Now I kind of create for both. Okay? I create for both YouTube and also podcasts, mainly because I've realized that there's people that don't feel like going on YouTube and they want to just pop on headphones while they vacuum or do whatever they're working. Maybe they want to have me in the background or whatever. It solves for the same thing. Long form content. That's your first asset, is long form content. And if you only have 4 hours to do these things and you have to choose Instagram versus long form content, what do you choose? I also think this is dependent on where you're at in your business and what's most important to you. If you need money today, you need a client today, probably Instagram in the normal funnel that people use. You make short form content, people engage, you go in their DMs, you ask them, hey, what's up? Do you need more help? That will give you probably faster results. The problem is when you do that, the sales conversation to get them to convert, to get them on the sales call, and then get them from the sales call to actually buy, it's going to elongate your sales process. It's going to make it longer. Why is it going to make it longer, Raylen? I'm so glad you asked. Like, this is a really good question, and I'm really proud of you for asking. The reason being is because they don't know you yet. They've only watched like 30 seconds of you. They've only liked 2 things or whatever. So they don't know you that well. So it's going to take longer to convert them. On the flip side, though, if you're okay, like let's say, for example, you already got a pretty full book of business for clients right now, and you're thinking long-term, hey, I want to make sure I have a good, steady lead flow that's coming in, go YouTube podcasting. Because in the long run, people will still find that thing that came to you or they listened to couple months ago. Again, do I think it's possible for you to get clients today making YouTube videos? For sure. But I would probably assume not. I would assume long term, right? It's an investment. The cool thing is, one more thing about YouTube, and I'll go to the next thing, the next asset, is you can leverage your YouTube videos more than one way. People think of it in terms of I post something on YouTube, people watch it, and then they engage with me via, funnel, like joining a newsletter or whatever. That's one way. The other thing is leveraging those YouTube videos inside the funnel to make sure they know you a little bit better. So one of the things that this thing is falling apart on me, guys. If you're listening to this, my mic just broke. Now I got to hold it like a freaking jabroni. All right, I got to stop talking with my hands. Breaking stuff over here. All right, so using YouTube videos inside your funnel. So one of the things I've done in the past is, let's say you make short form content, they like it, you go on their DMs, hey, let's jump on a phone call. Okay, that sounds great. I do have this problem. I think you can solve it. Outstanding. Your homework assignment, so you book the appointment and you say, hey, your homework assignment is to watch this training before the call. You send them a YouTube video. What does this do? Number one, likely to subscribe, which means even if they don't buy from you, you're going to nurture them with your YouTube channel. Number two, you can obviously use that YouTube video to get them pre-motivated, pre-interested, predisposed to buy, as my good friend Joe Polish says, so they can get more watch time with you. So I had this formula a long time ago that kind of explains sales and the formula of how do you get more sales. So at the end of the day, the most important metric to track whether or not someone's going to buy from you is trust. Well, how do you gauge trust? The only thing that I found that you can actually track is watch time. It's time spent. The more time you spend with an individual, the more likelihood of them trusting you. The more likelihood of them trusting you, the more likely they will buy. So if I can increase the amount of time that you spend with me, the more likelihood that you will buy. Even if you come from short form, even if you come from an ad, even if you come from whatever, I want to put in front of you YouTube videos so we can increase that time spent. So that's another example of how you can repurpose your YouTube videos. And of course, you can repurpose it and do whatever inside short form content, but maybe that's a discussion for another day. So leveraging long form content to gain attention is a better use of your time than short form, in my humble opinion. Now, what's the next asset that I promised you? Again, you have 4 hours to do this. And by the way, if you stick along in the video, not only am I going to give you the next asset here that you need to leverage and make sure you're utilizing to grow your business, I'm going to tell you my actual strategy to consistently be making these YouTube videos and podcasts, as well as the next thing. So stick around for that. So what is the next asset? It's your newsletter. Newsletters have begun to once again gain popularity. It's a great lead magnet, but it's also a good conversion tool. Historically, we would do a free lead magnet like a PDF or a template or something like that, and they would download that. You do an email sequence to get them on a sales call, so on and so forth. The cool thing about a newsletter is kind of like the long form strategy I talked about earlier with YouTube and podcast. If you read my newsletter every single week, you spend more time with me, and you're more likely, after you've seen that pitch I've put in, the super signature. By the way, if you don't know what a super signature is, all it is a PS line that says, hey, PS, there's 3 ways I can help you. And then there's a couple things you can go and buy or download or whatever. After you've seen that time and time again for months or whatever, you elect to opt into those things, to buy those things. It's a passive-ish way, non-pushy way of getting people to convert and actually become leads for you and clients. The other cool thing about the newsletter is, once again, it's not pushy. It's a long-term play. Again, going back to, hey, short form, maybe a newsletter isn't the best way to get somebody to buy from you today. It's not going to probably happen. However, if you want customers and clients that are going to subscribe and over the long haul watch, engage in with your content, and then buy from you, these customers retain way higher than if somebody just buys right off the rip and they just have an impulse buy. So if you're thinking about not just how do I get a client today, but how do I retain a customer and a client long term, the newsletter is the best way to go. And there's tons of great newsletters out there, right? You have the Justin Welch's of the world. You have my newsletter, which I got to say is pretty darn good. You have Joe Polish. You have all these newsletters. So what's the point of a newsletter? So I want you to think of a newsletter like a mixture of a blog and an email broadcast or an email blast to your audience, okay? You're simply just inviting people to be on your list. You're trying to tackle a specific problem in this newsletter. And when they subscribe over the course of, several weeks, whatever, weekly, like I have a 3-week email. I stole this from Joe Polish. Joe Polish, a founder of Genius Network, every week does about 3 emails, sometimes more. I'm doing about 3 emails a week, simply because I like shorter, more actionable things than the super long once-a-week emails that I get from people like Justin Welch, which I also think is obviously really good. But I just personally like to be in more contact with my email list. But that's what your newsletter is. The point of a good newsletter is to pick a specific problem that you know and feel like is important to your audience, and then try to solve that over time. And obviously supply tools and links and not links and bios, but links in the actual email itself. So again, it's a passive, hey, you should go check this out. I think it would help. Combining these two things, you'll spend less than 4 hours a week to grow your business. Less than 4 hours. So again, here's my exact strategy that I promise you I'd give you on how I just use these two tools. And yes, I still repurpose other platforms, but the primary driver, the primary thing I'm trying to build for is my YouTube and podcast and newsletter. So I got in this habit, which is super interesting considering I never felt like I was a good writer or a writer. Every day I read for about 20 minutes. And then based on that reading, I usually have an idea, an inspiration of some sort. And I just write and try to solve a problem for myself, but also for a potential client. And one thing that helps, obviously, too, and this is more of a branding play, is to have an avatar in your head, right? I have somebody that I'm constantly trying to help through my writing. So it helps me know who I'm talking to. But every single day, I'll write a piece of content. Now, if I'm doing this every single day, that's 7 days a week. My newsletter is 3 times a week. I can now dictate, hey, this wasn't the best. This is my favorite one I've written, whatever, and just pick the 3 of the best. Some days I'll do it more. Some weeks, I think it was last week, I only sent out 2 newsletters because the ones that I wrote wasn't all that great and I didn't really like them. So I said, fuck it, I'm not gonna share this. Maybe I'll come back and tweak it later. So now I have my newsletter that I'm writing. Then the 3 that I sent out, I usually see based on click through, right? Who's clicking on what inside the email, open rate, engagement that I get back from the list. I tend to know, okay, this was a good one. And that newsletter becomes that week's YouTube video in podcast. So if you're on my enrollment weekly newsletter, you've probably heard or read me talk about this a little bit because it was literally in this week's newsletter. That's it. The entire week of content, long form content, which by the way is going to stay because my newsletter is public. So you can read it before you even subscribe. It's not just the email list that gets to read it. In a few months, you can check out the YouTube video and come to this and go, man, that sounds pretty good. I want to enroll in this newsletter. It stays for a long time. And again, it takes me less than 4 hours. Honestly, it takes me less. I mean, probably, if I'm being honest, probably around 4 hours. Because if you include the reading to gain the inspiration, the writing it, then writing the newsletter, and then the only thing that takes me a long time, quote unquote, is the podcast and getting the actual video done. But for me personally, I use a software called Riverside.fm to quickly chop up the video for me and get it ready for YouTube. So at the end of the day, the longest part is me talking because I rant a lot. If you can't tell, that's the only part. That's the only part that takes a while. So if you're an online entrepreneur, you got 4 hours that you want to invest to gain customers, to get the right customers, and as well gain that attention. Your two assets that I want you absolutely should be investing in is your long form content and your newsletter. Those are only two tools you need. You can get fancy later on, but right now there's only two. Funnels will come and go, different offers will come and go, but if you stay with these two things, you can really launch whatever you want because then you have a list that you can constantly go to. And this has been talked about countless times, right? But your newsletter, you own that list. It's your contacts, it's your leads. Unlike algorithms, right? If you have a bad week on the algorithms, you can simply send out a newsletter and potentially get some leads, get some customers. Invest in these two long-form content, or invest in these two long-form type content. Yeah, I said that right. And watch as your business blows up. With that being said, I hope this was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this strategy? Are you already using it? What are your thoughts about it? And if you haven't already, hit the darn like button. Doesn't cost you anything, okay? Just helps your boy out. I appreciate it. I got a lisp all of a sudden. Sorry about that. It is what it is. And once again, if you haven't already, if you want to get these emails that I send out 3 times a week at least, go ahead, hit that QR code. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, go in the description below. You'll see where to sign up for that. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one.